Cavanoma Alliance.
Cavanoma Alliance became an important part of my life 9 years ago. In October 2008 I had my first seizure, as it were, and then eventually in 2009 it was correctly diagnosed as a cavernous angioma, or cavanoma is the portmanteau word. And I was quite fortunate. Despite having seizures, compared with most people, I was fairly benignly affected. And what I did what everybody does nowadays. Once I got a diagnosis, I went on the internet, I googled it, and I found out about Cavanoma Alliance UK, and I contacted the volunteer director of it, Ian Stewart, and I enjoyed having the connection, finding out that other people with my rare condition. And I think it must have been fairly soon after I attended the first conference in London, which was free, and I met Ian, and I was invited to become a trustee. And there was a particular reason I was happy to accept. Most people with a cavanoma can have huge problems, whether it's massive headaches or lots of regular seizures, or they're on medication for this. And I had none of this. I was quite fortunate. And I had experience of sitting on committees, including difficult ones like Exeter Synagogue, and I made a contribution, and I was appreciated for it, and I was happy to help other people with a cavanoma. Helping Ian, I liked it. I attended conferences of neurologists and conferences of neurosurgeons in different parts of England, and that was valuable too. You know, having an influence and having. Oh, I also went to lovely House of Commons receptions for rare diseases and things like that. So that was, I can't remember, it must have been 4 or 5 years of my life that I did that. And for a brief period when we were busy applying for lottery funding, I was actually chair. So we needed someone to sign. So I did reach the status of chair of Cavanoma Alliance UK by default in a way, and then I handed over to David, who has been an excellent chair ever since.
And you did work with families with cavanomas.
That was my particular contribution, because of my background working in museums and with children, and I was aware of the children with cavanomas. Quite often the parents had problems dealing with it. There was a fear. They didn't like to mention that there was something wrong with the child's brain, and I was outrageously upfront about it. I got children making cakes and putting a raspberry sweet in the right position in the cake where it would be in their brain. As a way of saying, look, this is your condition, own it, and it's not the end of the world. And they loved the fact that I was a naughty adult with a cavanoma. You know, in my particular case, it's claimed that the cavanoma causes disinhibition and things like that. So having a grown-up old man who was naughty was a revelation. Quite a few of these children were labelled as naughty. And so it gave them a sort of permission to be normal. We were all, and just to be with other children who had a cavanoma, rather than being in isolation and having a rare condition, to be with 20 other children and their siblings. And I did workshops. We took over the chapel at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, and just took over and did activities on the floor. And I remember we got some funding, I think it's through my wife, from the Roald Dahl Marvellous Children's Charity, and their director came to see. He was delighted with what we were doing, and they agreed to fund further activities. And we ended up, I think it was my wife organised the first Cava families. We had a meeting in Butlins, that's right, in Skegness or somewhere like that, and we had a marvellous time, and the children enjoyed meeting together, and that's something that's continued. I'm no longer on a chair or trustee of Cavanoma Alliance for good reasons, but in fact the family activities have become an increasingly important part of Cavanoma Alliance UK, so we can be proud of that, and those people who supported us in making it happen.